Black Widow is a film that fans have been wanting for years, and earlier in 2021, we finally got one. But, did it live up to the expectations? Did it do a character justice? Or was it just another mediocre MCU movie? Let's find out. Hey everyone, this is my first movie review on this channel, and I'm going to give a full spoiler review on Black Widow. Please make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed my review, and if you didn't like my opinion on the movie, that's fine. Let's just agree to disagree, and let's keep it civil. So the story starts with Natasha and her younger sister Yelena as kids, and they flee away from where they were living in Ohio with their adopted mother and father. They get sent to an assassination organisation that deals in espionage training programs in a place called the Red Room, where Natasha and Yelena were separated and forced to train for a man named Dreykov, who was in charge of the Black Widow program. We cut to 21 years later, directly after the events of Captain America Civil War, when Natasha is on the run from Secretary Ross. Her sister Yelena finds out that Dreykov is mind-controlling the Black Widow assassins, so she manages to get Natasha to meet up with her to help her free the rest of the widows. The two sisters reunite with their parents to figure out a plan to defeat Dreykov once and for all, while also confronting them about how they were left in the hands of Dreykov as kids and being forced to become trained killers. Now, my thoughts on this movie is that it would have been a lot better to release it just after Civil War, as it takes place directly after Civil War, and it's a time when we're still invested in that storyline. But having it released in 2021 after her death in Endgame, we already know that there's no stakes with Black Widow's character since we already know how and when she'll go out. We aren't even invested in the Civil War storyline anymore because we've already moved on from it. The characters that are in this movie, as previously mentioned, are Natasha, her sister Yelena, their mother Melina, and their father Alexei, aka the Red Guardian. Natasha and Yelena have some nice moments together, especially when the two are catching up at the table, in the store, and in the car when they're talking about how Yelena can buy herself a piece of clothing for the first time in her life. These moments really were heartwarming, as these two have been through some traumatizing events in the past, especially as kids. But in saying that, in most of her other scenes, they try to make her out as the typical annoying MCU comic relief by making a joke about Natasha's posing.
Why do you always do that thing?
Do what?
Like this thing that you do when you whip your hair when you're fighting with the arm and the hair, and you do like a fighting pose. It's a fighting pose. You're a total poser.
I'm not a poser.
Joking around during a prison break.
We're both doing a really good job.
And to be honest, it feels quite forced at times for her to make these childish jokes in a life or death situation. She even jokes about her being sterilized by the Black Widow program, which should be treated seriously and with respect, because it's quite a dark thing to talk about.
Is it your time of the month?
I don't get my period, dipshit. I don't have a uterus. They kind of just go in and they rip out all of your reproductive organs. They just get right in there and they chop them all away. Everything out.
Okay.
So you can't have babies.
Okay, you don't have to get so clinical and nasty.
See what I mean? I don't know why Marvel decided to joke about that. A lot of people love her sense of humour, and that's fine. Her humour just didn't land for me, as there were those certain scenes that should have been executed in a serious way, but was executed in a comedic way. The tone of this movie also suffers because of these jokes, as the movie was introduced with a very dark tone and had more violent scenes, but they couldn't carry out a dark tone with the storyline itself. After they both break Red Guardian out of the prison, they meet Melina at her farmhouse to talk about their goal to defeat Dreykov. Unfortunately for me, the mother and the father were acting the same way as Yelena was when it came to their humour. Whenever Natasha was trying to explain the plan to them at the table, they just kept interrupting her, and it was getting on my nerves as I wanted to hear what Natasha had to say. I was honestly telling her family to shut up while I was watching this scene, as I found them pretty annoying.
Agreed. So here's what's gonna happen.
Okay, reunion then, huh? And, I want to say something right off the bat. You haven't aged that day, huh?
Here's what's gonna happen.
Natasha, don't slouch.
I'm not slouching.
You're going to get a back hunch.
Listen to your mother.
Oh my God, this.
Up.
All right, enough, all of you.
I didn't say anything.
If you're going to tell jokes in this scene, don't let it get in the way of the plot or have it ruin what should be an emotional scene. They should have at least let Natasha say what she wanted to say, and then joke around with each other afterwards. They even turned Red Guardian himself into a fat joke when he struggles to put on the suit, instead of creating a badass suit-up scene. Later on in the final battle, Red Guardian was useless with the fight with Taskmaster, as he moves incredibly slow and isn't a matched opponent. He doesn't even hit her once and gets kicked around like an idiot. The one thing I did like about Melina and Alexei is that they had a character arc. By the end of the movie, they had become fully committed to being a family, and had learnt to become better people. Which is more than what I can say for Black Widow herself, who had no character arc. She doesn't change or learn anything about herself, therefore she kind of becomes a bit of a background character in her own movie. Now there are two villains in this movie, and I hate to say it, but they sucked. I was very disappointed in Taskmaster. He's a really cool villain in the comics, the Spider-Man PS4 game. I even liked him in the recent Avengers game compared to this movie. And no, it's not just because they gender swapped the character, it's because she literally has no personality like Taskmaster is supposed to. She's just a mindless Winter Soldier ripoff. The suit's design also looked very cheap, and it could have been a lot better and a lot more comic accurate. And instead of using her skills to mimic her opponents, she relies on the technology in her suit, something that anyone can use, which defeats the whole purpose of Taskmaster's ability. Her backstory doesn't really make any sense to me either. Natasha had to put a bomb in her backpack to assassinate Dreykov. I forgot to mention that she is his daughter. And they somehow both survived the explosion, even though she was literally the person closest to the bomb, with her being right next to it. If there were casualties, how did the other people in the building die from the explosion but not her? If there weren't any casualties, then that must have been a weak-ass bomb. I also find it pretty funny how they used a stuntman to play Taskmaster for most of the movie because they knew a woman wasn't built enough to fight like Taskmaster. Even the way he walks is like a man and not a woman. So why they went with this gender swapping? I have no clue. Dreykov himself was pretty lame too. He just came across as some perverted weirdo who didn't have a good reason for bringing in all women into the Black Widow's program. The part when Natasha couldn't kill him, I didn't mind the idea of having something implanted in all the widows, exposing them to the pheromone. But why wouldn't he give those pheromones to his daughter too? She would have been unstoppable. These two villains had the potential to be great, especially Taskmaster, but unfortunately they felt very generic and underwhelming. The action in this movie at times were okay, even though the final battle was another MCU explosion fest. Some of the debris, the red lighting, the intense music, it was done pretty well. But that's about all the good things I can say, because this movie was too lazy to shoot practical action, and they just relied on CGI for everything. And a lot of that CGI looked very cheap, especially for a really high budget Marvel movie. Black Widow herself looked incredibly fake when she was skydiving, flipping, even fighting Taskmaster was done with CGI. They couldn't be bothered to choreograph the fights most of the time. Black Widow also survives a lot of things that she definitely shouldn't have. These characters are very grounded compared to the other superpowered heroes that we see in this universe. And to have Black Widow survive something that even Captain America was injured by, it doesn't set a necessary line between the super soldiers and the regular people. I swear, the amount of car explosions that you see her survive in this movie is just ridiculous. There's not even a drop of blood or a scratch anywhere to be seen on her. Instead of utilising good choreography and practical effects and good stunt work, they just used some cheap looking CGI. Even in the car chase you could notice how fake some of the cars looked, especially when they were crashing. I wish we could go back to the old days in the MCU where they had some amazing choreography and realistic effects. My conclusion for this review is that Black Widow attempts to tell a darker spy thriller, similar to what Captain America the Winter Soldier did, but it doesn't stay consistent with its tone. And it has some mediocre dialogue, characters I couldn't fully get emotionally invested into, and it had generic villains. For a Black Widow movie, I have to say this was pretty disappointing, as Black Widow herself has less of a character arc than her own family, and it's her own movie. I got more invested into Black Widow in the Avengers movies rather than her own movie because she had a better story, and better character moments. I just wish we had gotten a story with her and Clint Barton in Budapest instead of what we got here. The score that I'm giving for this movie is a 5 out of 10, which pains me to say since I love the original 6 Avengers and I was looking forward to seeing Black Widow get her own movie. Oh well, at least she got a good send-off in Endgame. Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning into my first movie review of this channel. If you liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and I'll be taking any criticism in the comments section since I am new to this and would love to hear some input from you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next movie review. Have a good one.